What is Access? Access is a database. What is a database? A database is a software program where you can store and organize all of your data into. For example, let's say I want to keep track of all the employees in my company. I want to be able to store their information, like their first name, last name, date of birth, so I can send them a big fat birthday card on their birthday, and also their phone numbers, maybe their hourly rate or salary. All that information I can create and store. And for each employee that I have, there's going to be a record. So for example, me, Kurt Kershaw, I'll have my first name and last name in this database. Also, I can add my home address, the hourly rate that I make. All that creates one record of information and one record for each employee. Okay, other things I can keep track of are like products. My company sells products and I want to keep track of them separate from my employees. Now in Microsoft Access, to keep track of them separately, they have what are called tables. So this is a table of information all about the employees who work for my company, and in a separate table about products. In here, I can create and store things like the product ID, the product name, how much I have in inventory or on stock, all about products. I also have orders. So every time a client makes an order, I want to keep track of that order. Maybe I have the order ID, also the date when the order was made. So in case if we have things like a warranty issue and the client says, hey man, totally want a replacement or a refund. Well, we can look inside the table, and if we have the order date, and if we see it's 90 days out, well then we can tell the client it's no longer under warranty. Again, we can keep track of those things within the orders table. And then we finally have clients themselves. We can have the company's name or the first name and last name of the client, their address, shipping address, credit card information on file, things like that. Now Microsoft Access is what is called a relational database. A relational database means that these tables can relate to each other. Let me put it to you this way. When you have a filing cabinet and you have information on your employees, products, your clients, those who purchased your products, do you dump them all into one filing cabinet or all into one folder? Yeah, as if. And let's say later on you want to pull up just an employee. Oh, that's really inefficient. Because first of all, you have to lift this 20-pound folder out. And then secondly, you have to sort through the products, the orders, just to get to and find your employees. I mean, what a waste of time. So, in a relational database, for example, you create again what are called separate tables or separate folders. And what that means is that, for example, if I want to pull up the clients, that's easy to pull up. But if I want to pull up the clients and I want to keep track of all the products that one client has purchased, like client XYZ, then what I want to do is I want to create again, Microsoft being a relational database, a relationship between the products and clients. So I can come over here to the products and say, look, I want to extract some of this data. I want to find out all the clients who purchased product X. And maybe I want to do some target marketing to those clients. So there's no way I can pull up the products just by themselves without this relationship and take a guess and say, they purchased this. Or go to the clients and say, okay, I wonder which products they purchased. But if I go ahead and create a relationship, again, Access being a relational database, then for every product that's purchased is going to be tied to a client here. Not only that, but for every product that's purchased, it's through an order. So we'll have a relationship between the products and the orders as well. And we've got the order ID and have the date of the purchase, things like that. So we'll have the clients relate to the orders for every time they want to purchase a product, because the orders are going to keep track of that, the date that they made the purchase. Again, breaking it down, I'm not going to pull all this information up. If I just want to find out how many orders a client has made, I'm just going to pull up these two tables and of course have a relationship between the two. And it will be accurate because they're relating to each other. So for every order a client has made, it will show me the date that they made the order. And if I just want to keep track of how many orders they made, then I just need these two tables. I don't have to pull up the employees. I mean, that makes no sense, or the products. So it really becomes more efficient when you break it down into the smallest, most meaningful parts, or in this case, tables. All my orders are in one, all the products are in one, all the clients are in one, and so on. So you're really organizing your data and breaking them down, and you're going to relate them or create relationships. So if you do need to pull up related items like the products to the clients, you can do in a GIF. Now Access is more than just tables of information. In fact, what makes Access so powerful is that once you create your tables or your data in these tables is the ability to manipulate that data and pull in what you want when you want. So for example, let's say I got 200 employees. I don't want to go through each employee's record and find out if the employee has benefits or doesn't have benefits. I want to be able to instantly create a query and pull up all the employees who don't have benefits. Just filter out those who have it and filter in those who don't. Let's say out of 200 it automatically pulls up 25. I mean, that's fast, that's efficient, and that's what they call a query in Access. And then based on the query, I can create a report, print or email that off to HR, and have them go ahead and contact those employees to be able to offer them benefits. Also, you can control how the information is being entered into your database, and in this case, into your tables, the employees. So for example, if I hired a new employee, I want to be able to have the first thing they enter is the employee ID, and then the employee's first name, last name. Well, just think of it this way. Have you ever done shopping over the web and you've gone to a web page and you put in the first name, last name, and they have those fields up at the top? Well, in Access, you can control where you place those fields and what fields comes first, and even the data to be entered, like the maximum minimum number of, let's say, a 5-digit zip code. So you can move the fields around and what you want to see first, up at the top or at the bottom or in the middle. Also control the amount of data or the type of data being entered into a field. Like if you want a unique identification number for the employee, maybe it's going to be their social security number. Well, you can just say only 9 digits can be entered into this field, so nobody hits an extra key or types in 8 digits without a validation that says, oh, you're missing a digit, or oh, that's too many. So you can get more accurate data results by being able to control the user's input. In fact, let me go to the next slide in my PowerPoint presentation and break this down. Now, Access has what are called objects, and as we just learned in the previous slide, the foundation of all objects are tables. Because let's face it, without a table of data, you don't have a database. So we got to have some data, and to store the data, we create a table. And we break the data down into its smallest, most meaningful parts, in this case, tables. For example, we had a table all based upon employees, a separate table, from our orders, our clients, our products, and so on. Now, before we go any further, I strongly recommend that you actually watch our Microsoft Excel 2016 training videos. That is, if you're not familiar with Excel, because Access has a lot of similarities to Excel, except that Excel is a bit more simplistic and is a great introduction to the Access tables. For example, I'm going to go ahead and click on this link here to open up my Excel 2016 workbook and give you an introduction into tables. Because Access tables and this Excel, what they call a spreadsheet here, are the same in that they have cells. And these cells make up a spreadsheet, or in Access they would make up a table. And you can see over here on the left-hand side I have a database here on my Dreamforce's payroll, and I'm keeping track of all my employees, their first name, last name, social security number. You see, I've got all this information here, and so that makes up a database. And you can say, look, if I can create a database in Excel, why don't I use Excel? Well, you may want to use Excel to store your information to keep track of it, because in Excel you can actually do some sorting. Like you can sort it by last name here, and you can also filter as well, like over here in the benefits column, those who have benefits and those who don't. But on a very simplistic level, because Excel really wasn't meant to be the end-all of end-all databases. It's something to get started on. Also, Excel will perform functions and calculations, like for example, I have the hours for Max Klinger here. There's his hours, how much he gets paid per hour, and what I did is I multiplied these cells together to get his gross for that week. And those are the things you're going to be learning and doing in Access. So in other words, if you want to come in here and learn about Excel and you feel comfortable with moving around in these cells and typing in information into the cells and performing calculations and being able to sort information in Excel, then you've got the grasp, or the basics of how to work with tables in Microsoft Access. In fact, think of Access database built for small to mid-sized businesses. Well, what about large businesses? Like let's say you're a huge business, you've got thousands of employees and millions of clients. You want something perhaps a little bit more powerful, maybe like Oracle. But when it comes to the hierarchical structure within Microsoft, Excel is the way to start learning about databases and how to perform calculations, and then Access is the next step up. For example, in Excel here, you can't print reports or design a report as far as the face value goes, because what you see is what you get. So, if that works better for you, go ahead and stay with Excel. But if you want to continue with Access, I strongly recommend that you watch my Excel 2016 Level 1 training videos and get the basics of Excel until you feel comfortable with it. So let me go ahead and close out of Excel here and go back to my PowerPoint presentation and finish off our objects. So once we have our data, our raw organized data, the tables, then we can go ahead and query out the information from those tables. We can say, look, we want to see all the employees who don't have any benefits. That's what's called a query. It instantly filters out those employees who do have benefits and only pulls in those who don't, without having to scroll through perhaps dozens, hundreds, or thousands of records to find those who don't. On top of a query, Access has what are called forms and reports. Again, a form is something you can create as a place where you can organize the fields and control how the user inputs data into the table, because again, a table is where you can store all your data. So this form is just basically a place where you can actually type in information. Once you type it in, it dumps it right into the table. And forms you can make look really nice when it comes to organizing the fields and what people see and what they see first. Think of it like this way, like a report. A report is information you're taking from the table, so you can actually print it off and or email it to somebody, but in an organized way. Just as a form is a way of entering in information, a report is a way of pulling out information in a nice, organized manner. And then finally, I want to be able to define those objects a little bit more in detail, so let's go to the next slide. So a form by definition will display information from the table or query because, again, a query is based upon a table. Or you can enter in new information, new data, new records. It's a way of being able to control what the user inputs that's going to store in the table. And again, a table is raw organized data. Now a report is the printable results of forms or queries. You can actually turn a form into a report and email it or print it off. And again, forms are based upon either queries or tables, and queries are based upon tables. So as long as you have that link that it's based upon a table or tables, you're going to be able to create a report. And what are queries? It's just another way to retrieve data from a table to be able to filter in and filter out specific information, what you want to see or don't want to see. And finally, again, emphasizing the table. Without data, without information, without records, without names, addresses stored, you don't have a database. So as long as you have records, everything's all right, because then you can query those records, create a report based upon those records, and also have a form to input information to store in the table to continue on creating additional records. Let me go ahead and end my PowerPoint presentation and close out of here. And what you're looking at here is Windows 7. And what I want to do is to open up Access. I can do it one of many ways. But for the sake of this training video, every time we open up Access, I don't want to come down here on the Start button to go find it. Well, I'll find it the first time, but I want to create a shortcut to that program and put it on my desktop or down below on the taskbar, so I can just click on it once on the taskbar or double click it on the desktop, again without coming down here to the Start button and going to All Programs and then trying to find it. Okay, there it is. See, that took quite a few clicks. So when I find it, if I right click on it, and I pin it to the taskbar. See, it's down there. Ooh, that's fancy. Or I can right click on it and send it to the desktop as a shortcut. And then click off. It's right there or it's right there. So now we're ready to go. Either with a single click to open up Access or a double click on the shortcut on the desktop. Now before we open up Access 2016, I want you to know that when I create my databases, I'm going to be storing them here in my Exercises folder on the desktop. In fact, let's go ahead and double click to open it up to take a look inside, and hey, I already have a database in there titled Books. Isn't that nice? Let's go ahead and close out and open up the Access 2016 program, which I can do either by double clicking on the shortcut to the program on my desktop or the shortcut down below on the taskbar with a single click. Opens up the startup screen to Access, and here I can basically do three things. I can either go ahead and click and create a blank database from scratch, or I have to create the objects in there, the tables, the forms, reports, queries, or I can do a pre-built one and then tweak the tables, forms, reports to whatever suits my database needs, but that way I don't have to do it from scratch. Or if you have a database that you want to open up that's on your computer or on the network or even on the cloud, well, come over here, good neighbor, and you can see under the recent heading, we have the most recent databases that I opened up, which is nice because to open them up, I can just go ahead and click on it and it will open up that database. That is, if that database is still there. Now you can see right here the address for this database, the CI2 relationships. It says it's on the desktop in the Exercises or the Exercises folder. And you can see when I hover over it, it gives me the true address, which starts with the C drive. Well, let me go back up and hover over it again. In that pop-up, the C drive, the users that are logged in under was training. On the desktop in the exercises folder is the name of the database. Now remember, in the exercises folder, we just looked inside of there and we didn't see this. So I either deleted it or moved it. In any case, if I try to open it up by clicking on it, what is it going to do? Let me click on it. It gives me cannot find the file error, so alright, click okie dokie. Now it doesn't take me back to the startup screen, but it takes me backstage. Basically another place for me to, well, go ahead and create a blank database, do a built-in, or say, you know what, I don't want a new database. I really want to open up a database. So over here in the navigation bar, you can click on Open, and hey, there we go. We've got Recent here, and we can select from other options. But in any case, let me stop for a minute, close out, because I want to finish up the tutorial in the startup screen, and then we'll go backstage. So let's go ahead and go back and open up Access again. This time double-click the shortcut on the desktop. And we're back to the startup screen. And so now that we know that we can't open the CI2 relationships because it's not in that folder, what we can do is we can go ahead and right-click on it and say we want to remove it. That way we're not fooled into going, oh, let me go ahead and click on it, or it's cumbersome that it's taking up valuable real estate space here under the recent heading. Now we know that Books is in the folder, so when I click on that, hey, it opens up the Books database with their objects, tables, queries, forms, and reports. Let's go ahead and close out and open up Access 2016 again so I can finish my tutorial on the startup screen. And so we've got that link to the books, the one that I've opened up recently there. And when I open up other databases, this one, if I don't open up recently, begins to, well, start going down the list until it rolls off because it's so old. If I want to be able to keep it there, whether or not I opened it up recently, and I open up like 30 other databases, so it doesn't roll off, I can go ahead and hover over the pin and click on it, and it turns the pin down so you can see now it's pinned. So if I don't open up this database at all, it doesn't matter, it'll always be there. It will never roll off because it's no longer categorized as something that's being recent. It's just pinned and will always be there. Of course, I can go ahead and unpin it, so if it's something that I haven't opened up in a while as something recent compared to dozens of other databases that I've opened up, it'll disappear. So if you can't find your database as something that you recently opened up, or it's a new one that you want to open up, then you can come down here and click on Open Other Files. And when you click on it, startup screen disappears and you're backstage. And this is what we saw just a minute or two ago. So backstage, you've got your navigation bar, so you can do something new if you'd like. And there's your templates. Or let's go to Open because we want to open up something. So when I select Open, we can go to the first section here and it says, hey, you can open up something recent, which is nice because, well, look over to the far right and you can see everything that was opened up recently, well, for today. And you can see the address there. You can also pin it, unpin it, right-click on it. Everything that we did in the startup screen, you can do here as well. Let me click off. And again, if it's not there and you want to be able to open it up, well, you got a couple of choices down below. If it's on the OneDrive, which is a Microsoft server known as the cloud, because it's mysterious, it's somewhere out there at an undisclosed location that is basically a computer that you connect to that you can store your files to. In any case, you can go ahead and select OneDrive. When you select that, updates the far right screen where you can go ahead and, well, there's an explanation of it in graphical form. So it goes somewhere mysteriously out there. It's just a computer in somebody's warehouse, or Microsoft's warehouse, as it were. In any case, you can go ahead and sign in and then connect to that server, that computer that's somewhere out there, and be able to save your files to or open them up and view them on your computer. Now, if it's not on the OneDrive, you can go to, well, your computer, this PC. And then over to the far right, it updates and it says, okay, here's a bunch of folders. Is it in one of these folders? Of course not. So we have to go up a level. And when you click on the up, it goes up. And hey, there's my desktop. So I can click on that. What's on my desktop? It's the exercises folder. Well, others, but I want to click on the exercises folder. And hey, there it is. Oh, isn't that nice? Now you can do it that way if you'd like. Or if you just want to do a simple browse, opens up the open window. And it takes me right to, well, there's the address. I'm logged in as training, and on the desktop in the exercises folder, there's the books. Now I can come over here in the navigation pane and select desktop, and over here updates on the desktop, there's my exercises folder. Double click on that, and there's books, and I can go ahead and, of course, Select it and click on Open. Whether you're opening up a database or creating a new one from scratch, the work environment is going to be pretty much the same. In that, well, let me give you an overview of everything that you're looking at here briefly by coming up here in the upper left-hand corner, and you've got a few commands here that are on what's called the Quick Access Toolbar, and it's called that because you can quickly access any command on it in a single click, like the Save button here. And I'll show you in a later training video how you can customize that by adding or removing commands from the Quick Access Toolbar. And then to the right of that, you've got the title bar because you have the title of your database, Books. And then over to the right, you've got the address to your database starting from the hard drive, the user that you're logged in as training. On the desktop in the exercises folder is the name of that file, that database, Books. And then you've got a dot and the name extends, or what's called the extension. And you've got a bunch of letters there that tells the operating system what program to open up this file in. So when you double click on your Books database, it doesn't open up in the Microsoft Word program because that ain't going to work. And then over to the right, you've got the file format, and the compatibility for Access is, well, from 2000 to 2016, basically having the same file format, so it's compatible. 2007, 2010, 2013, and 2016. As opposed to an earlier version like 2003, you're going to run into some issues in your database if you try to work with an earlier version of a database and some of the features that are not available in those earlier versions. And then you can sign in, meaning that, well, you can hover over it. You can log into a Microsoft server, upload this, save it to it, and then log in to anywhere there's internet connection and retrieve your database file. And then you've got Help, click on that, and then you've got your Windows operating buttons. You can minimize this window down to the taskbar, restore it down so it doesn't fill up the whole screen, and then of course you can close out of the program completely. And then down below that you've got a bunch of commands that are organized onto what's called a ribbon. And the ribbon has a bunch of tabs here. So you can imagine if you have all the commands and not on separate tabs, it would fill up and bring the bar down, or the ribbon, quite a ways here. And so instead of putting everything into one place, it's organized. So if I want to create something, go ahead and click on the Create tab. Like if I want to create a table, well, there you go. Table, queries, forms, reports, macros, and coding. Fabulous. And what helps to keep it organized on the tab to spot what you want to do, in this case when it comes to creating something, is that it's sectioned off into groups. So you've got a line between the tables and the queries. And so you've got a line between that and then a line over here, and everything in those two lines is called a group and it's labeled tables. Let me go back to the Home tab. Now you may find some groups that if they have more commands than what you see there, it'll have in the bottom right hand corner the More button or the expandable dialog box button that when I click on it, in this case, it opens up the clipboard. And I can work with that, but let me close out of it. Now up on the ribbon, you've got a bunch of tabs that when you click on it, well, on this tab, the external data, you can import or export your data. And so you can see it keeps everything the same, except when I go to the File tab. When I click on the File tab, it wipes away the screen here and takes me to what's called the backstage, the working area for the environment that I'm working on, which gives me some options that I can go ahead and set that we'll talk about in a later training video. But more of the basics here is that you can go ahead and do some printing, close out of the database, open up another database, you know, what we talked about earlier here. And to get back to the front stage, because we want to work on the database, not the elements of the database, including like properties of the database. Let me go ahead and click on it, where I can go ahead and store the title of the database, the subject, the author, the manager of the database, or of the project that this database is a part of. However you want to go ahead and organize that there, it has the fields. A place where instead of creating a separate table in the database where you can type all this information, you've got the properties right here. Let me go ahead and click Cancel. So to get back to where I can go ahead and see my database and the objects, just go ahead and click the back arrow. And I'm back to the front stage, the working area, and not, well, backstage behind the scenes, as it were. And then down below that, over to the left-hand side, you have the navigation bar that lists, well, all the objects that we've created so far, like our tables, queries, forms, and reports. And if I don't want to see, like, maybe the tables, because I have 50 tables, and I have to scroll down to see the queries, I can go ahead and click on the double arrows to collapse it, and it brings the queries up to the top here Fabulous. Let me go ahead and expand it. You can also click on the Objects drop-down arrow, and down below you can do a filter. So if you don't want to click and collapse all of this, you can instead say, well, I just want to focus on reports. Select it, and there you go, just reports. So when you're looking at the Access database, you're like, oh my goodness, I thought there were tables. Well, be sure to go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow and make sure it's not filtered. So we want to go back to all Access objects, and there we go, back to where we were. And then if you need more room, you can go ahead and click on the shutter bar to open or close the navigation pane here. Click on it, collapses, do your thing. And then when you want to go ahead and bring it back up, just click anywhere on it. You don't have to click, let me click on that, on the double arrow there, just go ahead and click anywhere on it, brings it back up. And lastly, that if I wanted to go ahead and open up a table, well, it's listed here. Just go ahead and give it a double click, and it opens up over in the main working area, the window here. And so you can go ahead and look through it. And it's just like an Excel spreadsheet in that it's got cells. And so you've got a cell for the employee ID, a cell for the last name, first name, and the department code. And all of these cells here for this row make up a record. And who's it for? It's Mr. Max Klinger. And then when you're done, you can go ahead and, of course, click on the X to close out of it. And then finally, down below on the status bar, you can see right now it's ready. If there's anything that's informational that will help us when working on an object, it will display here. And then over to the far right, looks like it's keeping track. If we have our number locks on, if I hit the number locks key on the keyboard, it turns it off. Hit it again, it brings it back up. In any case, if you want to customize the status bar because maybe you don't want to see whether or not you have number locks on, go ahead and right click anywhere on it. See, right click there. Brings up the same shortcut menu. And there's number locks. When I go ahead and deselect it, it disappears. But let me go ahead and bring it back up. Now, if you need a little bit more help than what we provide in our training videos, you can do it one of a couple of ways. Either come up here on the title bar and click on the question mark. As you can see in the pop-up when I hover over it, you can also hit the F1 key on the keyboard. Opens up the help window. You can maximize that. Look at the top categories, like getting started, what's new in Access 2016, the quick start, keyboard shortcuts, click on that, and well, you can read more about it. You can also do a search, type in what you're looking for and hit the search. Let me go ahead and close out. You can do it that way, or new to Office 2016 is the light bulb. Tell me what you want, what you really want. Go ahead and click in there. Gives you some suggestions you can try. But if you want to look at table, go ahead and type it in, and it does two things. It'll have a list of the commands you can click on, like if you want to create a table, or you want to create it from the design view, or do you want to use the command the analyze table, which we'll cover in a later training video. Or if you don't want to execute a command, you just want to learn more about it or get help, hover down below and create a table. When you create an Access database, you store data in tables. Oh, you can click on that to learn more about it, opens it up. And, well, you can restore that and read more about it. And we can come back up here. If that wasn't good enough, let's type in table again. Go down to get help. Maybe it wasn't about creating a table. Maybe you want something more than what's listed there, and go to all help and support, which opens up the same window as when you click on the question mark. And then of course you can go ahead and type in what you're searching for and do a search and see if it gets the results that you're looking for. You can set the Office theme or the color for your Office applications, not just Access, but all of them, like PowerPoint, Word, Excel, by opening up any Office application. And since we have Access open, if we want to be able to set the color for it, because my color is white, I know it's bland, but in any case, if you want to make it colorful, which is the default for your Office applications, then come up here. Let's go backstage by clicking on the File tab. Go down to Options, General selected by default. If not, go ahead and select it here. And then come down below to personalize your copy of Microsoft Office. It doesn't say Access, it says Office. So that's all the Office applications. Again, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, Access. And then down below, the Office theme is white. The default will be colorful. So when I select that and I click Okie dokie, oh, that's so colorful. And that's the default for Office 2016. And not only does it update for Access, but it'll also update it for, again, all the other Office applications. So if I come down here and open up Excel, let me click on that. Ooh, that's colorful too. Oh, that's nice. And so I can do it in Excel as well. File, go down to Options, General, and then come down here to personalize your copy of Microsoft Office. It doesn't say Excel, so it includes Access. So if I change it from colorful, ooh, here I can go dark gray. Ooh, that's pretty crazy. Let's go ahead and do white and click Okie dokie. And so, okay, up here in the title bar area, it went from green to white. Close out. Did it update it for, hey, it did it for Access as well. Oh, that's nice. Let's go ahead and go backstage again. Click on File, down to Options, again General, and come down here. In addition to personalizing our copy of Microsoft Office, instead of the Office theme, we can enter in our username and initials. Why would you want to do that? Well, what you type in here is going to be associated with any Office document you create, including Word, Excel, again it's Microsoft Office, all the Office applications, and it's going to appear in places like comments, revisions, and general document properties. And that includes also authorship. So by default, when you're working on it, it pulls in this information here and identifies you as the author, or whatever you have here, like if it's the name of your computer like Dell or HP. In any case, go ahead and update that. And let's click Cancel, because when I click on the File tab, go backstage, Info selected by default, and I come over here and click on View and Edit Data Properties. Whose name is that? Hey, it's me, because I had that in the username information field that we just came from. So cool. Don't have to type it in here because it pulled from there, and other places that I mentioned as well. So let's go ahead and close out of here, and let's come down here and go to Options one more time. And go back up here, we've got General selected. Let's go down to Creating Databases here, the section, because when you create databases, if you're creating a lot of them, you may want a default folder to put all the databases into when you create them. And right here, I've got mine in the Exercises folder on the desktop. So I can go ahead and click Browse and say, how about whenever I create a database, I just want it to be on the desktop. Click Okie dokie, and you can see the address is right to the desktop. Cool. So when I click Okie dokie, and I go backstage again, File, and I go down to New, and I say, I'd like to create a database from scratch, a blank database, and I click on it. And you can see over here the name of the file, so I can update that and say, well, not the delete the dot in the extension, so it can tell what program to open it up in, just everything to the left-hand side of that dot, that period. I can call it my spiffy database, because everything we do here at Dreamforce is spiffy. And you can see the default is, well, again, there's the hard drive users. I'm logged in as training on the desktop. Now you can change it here if you want, but the default that we set in the options here, as you recall, was to always put it on the desktop. But if you don't want it on the desktop, you can click on the Browse button and double click the Exercises folder, click Okie dokie. It updates the address, so when I click Create, it puts it all into the Exercises folder on the desktop. Now the Quick Access toolbar in the upper left-hand corner is called that because you can quickly access any command on it in a single click. And we've got a few here like the Save, Undo, and Redo, as opposed to, well, if I wanted to be able to stay on the Home tab and from time to time go to the Create tab to create a form, instead, I can add the Form command here to the Quick Access toolbar, so that way I don't have to leave the Home tab and kind of keep everything in a single click, as opposed to, well, one click and then clicking on Form, 2 clicks. Hey, I just increased your productivity, didn't I, by teaching you this? And I'll show you how you can add that command to the Quick Access toolbar. Let's go back to the Home tab, and you can add it one of, well, quite a few ways. One way is to go ahead and click on the corresponding drop-down arrow on the Quick Access toolbar, and it has a list of the popular commands like, well, creating a new database. Click on that, adds the New button. So when you click on that, it takes you right backstage to the New category where you can go ahead and create a blank database or one of the built-in ones. Let's hit back, as opposed to clicking on the File tab, going backstage, and then selecting New. Let's go back and click on the drop-down arrow. We can have the Open command. So when I want to open up another database, click on that. Fabulous. I have my open window there. Let me click Cancel. Or when you click on the drop-down arrow, if you want more commands than what you see here, go down to More, click on that. Takes us backstage, the access options, to the category Quick Access Toolbar, and it's divided into two sections. You have a list of, well, you can see your popular commands down below, and then over to the right-hand side, all the commands that are currently on the Quick Access Toolbar. And so if you want to be able to close the database, you can select that option there, and then with it selected, come over here and click Add. Now before I click Add, you can see I've got Save highlighted, so when I click Add, it adds it right below what I have highlighted. So if you don't want it there, you don't want it at all, you can have it selected, click on Remove, and it's gone, and then just select where you want to put it, like maybe right after Redo, and then come over here with it selected, click on Add, or you can just double click and it adds it over. And then once you add it, if you want to reorder it, instead of removing it, you can come over here and use the up or down arrows. Ooh, that's fun. And then besides the popular commands here, there's more. So you can click on the drop-down arrow and choose all the commands that are available for you to put on the Quick Access Toolbar, and there's quite a bit. And it's sorted first numerically, then alphabetically. So if I want to go down to the C's here, like maybe I want to add the close window command, we can go ahead and just double click to add it over to the right, and then sort it if we'd like. And I don't know about you, but when I add commands to the Quick Access Toolbar, I mean, these commands are tiny enough as is. I don't know about you, but when I come up here and I click on something in a hurry and I overshoot the command that I wanted to click on, well, that can be kind of messy, especially if I have a quick print button that automatically prints. So what I can do is I can add what are called separators, just like you see on the ribbon here. These lines that separate, well, this group from that group. And these separators can do, well, one of two things, or perform one of two functions, that you can have it separated and say, okay, I'll have a line here that separates my open from my close commands, and that can be one group, or as I mentioned, if you want some spacing in between the commands so you're not right next to the other and you don't accidentally get so close that you click on the other, then to get the separator command, let's scroll all the way back to the top, and it's right up at the top, separator. To add it, we'll just double click it, and there's one separator, or as you see here, one line. If you want additional lines or separators, keep double clicking until you get enough. And then you can go ahead and select it and use the up arrow key to say, well, one separator, that's before the open. Then we'll select the next one and say that's after the close. So this is my open and close here. Well, that's the close master view. Well, that's okay. Oh, maybe we want an after close window. Let's do that. So we have our open and closes all grouped together. And if I want to, let's do more up here. And maybe you want a double separator from the save. Let me add one after it. And the undo and redos. So you can group them by sectioning them off with your separators, or just to give yourself more space. So let me click and drag the title bar up so I can come down here and click Okie dokie and see it in action. There we go. I've got two separators there, so I'm less likely to click on the undo, it not being as close to the save button, than when I just want to click on save. And then you can see how I got it sectioned off, the open and close buttons from, well, that group there. Or you don't even have to do that to section them to create your own mini groups. I like it just because it gives me extra spacing, but that's your flavor, whatever works best for you. And then other ways to go ahead and add commands to your Quick Access Toolbar. You can go ahead and click on the File tab to go backstage and go down to Options, and there you go. Same window that we saw, Access Options. So we have the left section, the list of commands, and the right. You can do that, click Cancel, or you can come up here and right-click anywhere on the Quick Access Toolbar and go down to Customize the toolbar. Goes backstage, opens up the same Access Options window for the Quick Access Toolbar. You can tweak it there. And of course, you can go ahead and say, well, I no longer want this. Select the separator and remove it and close out. So that's how you can remove it. There's other ways, but let me go just a bit further. You can also, when you want to add a command to the toolbar, if it's on the ribbon, well, just go ahead and right-click on it and say you want to add it to the toolbar. Left-click, adds it. Cool. You can also add the entire group. Instead of right-clicking on a command, you can just go ahead and right-click in a blank area within the group, like the clipboard group. Right-click and say you want to add the group to the Quick Access Toolbar. And even though it looks like it's got a command here, so it's just for pasting, it has to choose an icon within the group to represent the group. So don't think that when you click on it, it's going to paste it, because when you click on it, it opens up and expands that to show all the commands within that group. And then, of course, when you want to remove them, the easiest thing for me to do, instead of opening up the Access Options window, is just to right-click and remove, and right-click and remove, and I'll just clean this up really fast. Even the separators, to remove them, if I can right-click right on them, and the new, cool. If you want a larger working area, you can actually collapse the ribbon, and to do that you can do it one of a couple of ways. One way is to come over here to the far right, and you see a little tick mark that's pointing up. Well, it's not a tick mark, maybe it's more of an angle. In any case, you can go ahead and hover over it and see that it will collapse the ribbon. And also, it's got the shortcut keys in the pop-up, Control F1, that will collapse and expand the ribbon. But let's go ahead and click on that little angle first to collapse it, and there you go, it's collapsed. And if you need to access a command on the ribbon, like let's see on the Home tab, then come up here and click on Home, and it opens up temporarily, enough for you to go ahead and select your command, and when you select it or click off of it, it collapses again. And if you want to bring it back up permanently, then you can use the shortcut keys, Control F1, and there you go, Control F1 to collapse it, Control F1 to bring it back up, and then lastly, you can go ahead and double click on the tabs themselves to collapse, and double click to bring it back up again. You can also customize the ribbon in that if you want to add your own commands to, let's say, the Home tab, in your own custom group on the Home tab, maybe something in between clipboard and sort and filter, call it My Spiffy Commands. Or better yet, how about if we add our own tab, maybe to the right of the Database Tools tab, and call it My Spiffy Tab, and add our commands to that. To do any of that, go ahead and right-click anywhere on the ribbon and go down to Customize the Ribbon. It brings up the Access Options backstage, Customize Ribbon, and just like you saw in the Quick Access Toolbar training video, over on the left-hand side you have your commands, well, popular commands. If you want all the commands that are available that you can add to your ribbon or the tabs over here on the ribbon, click on the drop-down arrow and select All Commands. And you can see it's sorted numerically first, then alphabetically. And then over here, again, you've got your tabs, and we've got our Home tab, our Create External Data tabs. There's Home, there's Create External Data. And the reason why we don't see Print Preview or some of the other tabs is because we're not working on a specific object that would pull that in. So if we're working on an object that would pull it in and it's not checked, well, then we wouldn't see it. So let's leave it checked, which brings up a good point. You can uncheck these if you don't want to see them, like the Home tab. So now you see it, it's unchecked. Click Okie dokie, now you don't. So let's go ahead and fix that and bring it back up again. Right-click anywhere to go to Customize Ribbon. And of course, don't forget, you can also go backstage, File, to Options, and well, if it's not selected, go ahead and select Customize Ribbon. I prefer right-clicking because that's a lot faster. So with it selected, you can see over here, check the Home tab so we can bring it back up. And before we go ahead and click OK to bring it up, how about if we tweak the Create tab? Now on the Create tab, you've got these groups here with their corresponding commands, like, well, we got the templates here, and then we got the next group, Tables, Queries. There's Tables, Queries. So if I expand Tables, there's the commands in that group, Table, Table Design. There we go, Table, Table Design. Now I can go ahead and remove these from the tab, select it, that group, and click Remove. In fact, I can remove all of them, but we won't remove the last one, Macros and Code. Now, can I add commands to that group? No, you can't mess with the default groups. So if I expand it, there's all the commands, and if I'm like, I'd like to add Excel to that group. With it selected, when I click on Add, it says, you can't do it. You have to create your own custom group. Don't mess with our default stuff, okay? Totally. Click Okie dokie. And then to be able to add your own custom group, just come down here. Well, either with the group selected within the tab or just select the tab itself that you want to add the group to and click on New Group. And it adds it down below, but if you want it to be the first group or above Macros and Code, with it selected, click on the up arrow, and there you go. Now the name, it's not doing it for me. That's generic, New Group, so select it and say that you want to rename it. Now you can choose a symbol that represents the group. As you recall in the Quick Access Toolbar training video, when you want to be able to add a group to the Quick Access Toolbar and you right-click in a blank area within that group, you may want to have a symbol that represents that group. And if I chose the happy face, then when I right-clicked in an empty place within that group to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, we get the smiley up there. So that's good because we're happy. And then the display name for the group, it's not new group. Let's call it something spiffy because, hey, everything we do here at Dreamforce is spiffy. And then go ahead and click Okie dokie. Now I've got my spiffy group that's going to be with the macro and code group on the Create tab, but I don't have any commands within that group. So with it selected, well, just come over here, find your command, whatever it is, select it, and click Add. And well, I'm just adding a bunch of commands, but you get the idea. Find the commands that you want to add to the group, and once you've added them, that's it. Let me go ahead and click and drag the title bar up and click Okie dokie and see what happens. Okay, first off, we got the Home tab back again. Phew, that was a close one. And then second of all, in the Create tab, we got rid of all the groups except for the last one, macros and code. And then we created our own spiffy group with the 3 commands. And if we wanted to be able to add that to the Quick Access Toolbar, that group, right-click in a blank area, add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, and oh my, look at that. We get a happy face. Oh, that's nice. Now, what about creating our own tab? Let's go ahead and do that. Right-click anywhere, customize the ribbon. Come down here and say it's a new tab, and I put it right after create because that's what I had selected here. And so if I don't want the tab there, I want it like, well, let's say before the home. Click on the up arrow so it's right before the home, and we can rename the tab instead of the generic new tab. Select rename and call it something, that's right, spiffy, and then hit enter on the keyboard so it accepts it. And then, well, you have to have a group to add commands to the tab. So by default, it gives us a generic new named new group. And so we want to rename that. And we'll come down here and click rename and call it, oh, a fancy group. And then have something that represents that. So if we ever decided to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, ooh, a butterfly. Ooh, that's nice. Select that, click Okie dokie. That's fancy. And then, of course, you can go ahead and add commands to that fancy group. Maybe copy, add, well, in any case, you get the idea. And you can add more groups, of course, as many as you'd like. Well, I haven't tested it fully how many groups you can add to the ribbon, but in any case, there we go. There's that one. Rename it. Call it G2. Well, that sounds very techy. And then maybe a little piggy. And click Okie dokie. And okay, I think you get the idea. And then when we're done, let's go ahead and click Okie dokie. And here we go. Spiffy, yay! Click on it, and there's something fancy in our G2. Right-click to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar. We get the butterfly, and then right-click G2, add that, and we get the little piggy. Click on it, and it expands. There's the group, there's the happy face, there's the butterfly. Now, if you want to go back to the way the ribbon was before you made all these changes, go ahead and right-click and go back to Customize the Ribbon. And down below, when it comes to resetting, you get 2 reset options. Well, the other one's faded because I don't have a tab selected, an original tab, the default tab on the ribbon, that I can reset only that tab. So like, well, let's do the create here, and then click on reset. Now it's available. So after I removed a bunch of groups from that, created my own custom group, I'm like, no. I just want to go back to the way the create tab was originally. Go ahead and click on reset only the selected tab. And the only one that we have selected is create. Click on it. To reset it, click Okie dokie. We go back to create, and it's back to the way it was. Then the other option is if you want to reset everything, so we don't have a spiffy tab or any customizations to the ribbon and even the Quick Access Toolbar, we can do the big nuke by right-clicking anywhere on the ribbon to customizing it and resetting everything. Let's reset all customizations. Are you sure? Because it also affects the Quick Access Toolbar. Yeah, we're sure. Yes. Okie dokie. I lost all the commands that I add to the Quick Access Toolbar, and Spiffy's removed, and everything's back to the way it was on both the Quick Access Toolbar and the ribbon. When it comes to entering data in your tables or queries, they both have what are called a datasheet view. It's where the front-end user enters in the data. So if it's a table, let me double-click and open up the books. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet. You got a bunch of cells here where you can edit the data or add additional data down below. And for that row, it would be a new record. And then for the queries, let's open up one here. Double click on books because that's based upon the books table, and we're pulling in certain fields. And you can see it looks exactly the same as an Excel spreadsheet or the table. They're both datasheet views. Now, if you want to customize the datasheet view, for example, maybe the font is too small, you want to make it larger, then go ahead and come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage down to Options, and then select Datasheet, and then come down here, and there you go, set the default. You can change the size, the weight of the lines if you want to make it, well, bolder, underline the data, or make it italics. I'm going to keep it simple and change the size. Let's do something huge, 24. Click Okie dokie, and it won't show us that in the datasheet because we already have it open, so we have to close out of it so it can refresh. And then we can go ahead and double click, open it up, and oh man, that's huge. And then also for the queries, double click. Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and set it back to the way it was. Again, File, Options. Let's go faster. Datasheet selected because we just been there. And let's go back to size 11. Okie dokie, and let's close out of them, send them to the powder room so they can refresh. Double click, open it back up, and we're back to where we started. When it comes to opening up these Access objects like your tables and queries and so on, when you open up one, like the books table, by default it opens it up in a window, that object, and up at the top of the window you get this tab. That way if you have more than one opened, like our books query, double click. To toggle back and forth between the windows, just click on the corresponding tabs, like for the books table and then back to the books query. Now there are 3 different ways you can view your Access objects, or 3 different windows to view them in. The default, of course, is the one that contains tabs up at the top, and the other 2, or all 3 of them collectively, can be found backstage, clicking on the File tab, going down to Options, selecting Current Database, and it's right there. Document Window Options. You got 3. Overlapping Windows, Tab Documents, and Display Document Tabs, which is in conjunction with Tab Documents, meaning that if I choose overlapping windows, well, you don't get that option to include tabs on the overlapping windows. So let's go ahead and go through all 3 of them. We covered the first one, the Tab Documents with the Display Documents tab checked. Let's go to Overlapping Windows. And overlapping windows is the only setting that will allow you to position the open windows around and be able to resize it, which if a company wants you to design their database with controlled access of the front-end user with where, what, and how they see the windows, then this would be a good option. So for example, select it, overlapping windows, click Okie dokie. Oh, and then we got to refresh, so we have to close out of the database. Click Okie dokie, close out, and then open it back up, which of course we can go ahead and open up the Access 2016 program, double click, and then come up here. It's the most recent here, the books, or better yet, in the future, let me close out. It'll be just quicker for me to come down here on the taskbar and right click on the Access 2016 shortcut to get the jump list. There's my recents there, and the most recent's up at the top that I worked in, which is the books database. Click on it. Cool. Let's go ahead and open up one of these in the overlapping windows mode. Double click on the books table, and there you go. You don't get the tab up at the top, but you do get a window that you can resize, and you can see the window options over to the right, the minimize, well, maximize in this case, and close, which you have for the entire program up at the top. So if I come down here, click on maximize, well, they're right next to each other, so, well, don't click on the outer X. That's going to close the whole program. But you can go ahead and click on the any X, and that will close out of the table here, or you can restore it down or minimize it. And you can also hover over the borders until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions, in which case you can go ahead and click and drag in or out, and then open up another one like a query, and we can resize that. Oh, it's so capricious. Let's go ahead and try to, well, there you go. And you can kind of like move them around. Oops, see, I'm clicking. That gets a little bit tricky. And so instead of doing it by hand, what you can do is up here on the Home tab in the Windows group, and this is only available in the overlapping windows view. You can click on Switch Windows, And you can arrange your windows, like if you want to tile them horizontally, click on that, and there you go. You don't have to sit and fiddle with it. Automatically stacks one on top of the other. So I can compare between the two and work in one while watching the other, or just not having to tab back and forth, just go from one window to the next. And then if for some reason you do maximize one of them so you can't see the other, well, you can go ahead and double click and just pull it back up, then double click the other one to pull that to the front, then double click that one to pull it to the front. Well, you can do it that way, or come back up here to the window group on the Home tab and click on Switch Windows, and that's what it means. You can switch between the windows that are open, and I've got two down below. Go to the Books query, click and go back to the Books table. You get the idea. Okay, so that's for overlapping windows. Let's take a look at tab documents by going backstage, File, Options, Current Database, and there we go. So we're going from overlapping windows that we just worked on to tab documents, except we're not going to display the document tabs because we've already seen that. That was the first thing we saw in the training video when we opened up our Access objects. So let's uncheck it to see what it's like without it. Click Okie dokie. Oh, okay. Got to send it to the powder room to take a refresher so it can reset things. Let's click Okie dokie and then close out of it completely. Let me go back down on the taskbar, right click on the program to get the jump list to Books, the database again. And let's go ahead and double click on Books. And looky there, you don't get the resizing handles at all, so you can't get anything that's overlapping, so it rules out the overlapping window option for me to go ahead and, well, if I click on Restore Down, it does the entire program. Restore Down, let me maximize it. So you don't get that option, so if I open up the Books query, double click, it's overlapping the other. And so you can go ahead and, just go back to the Books if you want to see that again and double click, but it's already opened. And so if you want to be able to switch back and forth between the two, well, in the tab documents, you don't get on the Home tab the Windows group. It was only available for overlapping windows. So if you want to be able to get that switch feature so you can switch back and forth without having to double click to pull the query books back up to the front or any other windows that you have, then you can add that command to the Quick Access Toolbar. So you want to come up here, right click on the Quick Access Toolbar to customize it. Change it from popular to all. And then click and drag the scrolly bar all the way down to the S's. And there you go, switch windows. Let me select it and click add, and well, added it right there. With it selected, let me click down a couple of times so it is the last command on the Quick Access Toolbar, that is over to the far right. Click OK, and then come up here, click on the switch windows, and hey, there we go. I can just come up here and click on query, the Books query to go to that, and then to go back to the Books table. You can do it whatever works best for you or you feel most comfortable with, because you can just as readily go ahead and double click on one to pull it to the front as coming up here on the Quick Access Toolbar with the Switch Windows command. Now, of the three window options, for me, my favorite is the tab documents with the display of the tabs for the windows. Makes it easier for me to go ahead and click on them. But if I was a database designer for a company that wanted control of what the front-end users can see, maybe you've got some objects in here. Well, you don't want them to see the navigation pane. I'll show you in a later training video how you can hide that when you open up the database so, the front-end user is not poking around in here. But also how you can use code to customize the overlapping windows so when they open up maybe a form with a bunch of buttons that will take them to other windows, you can say when they click on a button, it'll open up like maybe the tables over here in the upper right-hand corner about yay big. So you can control where the placement is of the window and what size. Before we learn how to create a database from scratch, which is what we're going to be doing in the next training video, I want to briefly introduce you to the four objects we've been talking so much about. And here they are again, as we've seen in previous training videos. You got your tables, queries, forms, and reports. But now I want to open them up. And basically, when you open up any one of these objects, you're going to have two views. Well, some you'll have more, and others you'll just have two. And basically the views I want to show you is the front end view, like for data entry for forms, queries, and tables, and then the design view so you can set up and design your tables, queries, forms, and reports. So for example, like the Books table, double click, it didn't create itself or design itself, meaning that, well, you create the table and you save the name of it and call it Books, but what about the fields? You have to set those up. And one way you can do that is just by coming over here where it says click to add and type in the field's name. The other way is you can go ahead and go to the design view, flip the view here from the front end to the back end by coming up here on the home tab to the views group, and you see the pencil, ruler, and the triangle. Well, those are design instruments, so click on it and we're in the design view because it's got its related contextual design tab. And you can see down below we've got our field names that you can type in here and then set the data type or type of data that you want to be entered into that field or displayed. Like when you type in a number, it'll display it in currency. So that's an oversimplification of the design, and I don't want to dwell on it too much because we'll go over it more in greater detail in a later training video, so we don't get overwhelmed here. Let's go back to the front end view, the datasheet view, by coming up here on the design tab to the views group and clicking on the datasheet button there, and we're back to the front end view. Now in the front end view, once you have your field set up, you can start entering in records or the data for that field, and then for the title and then for the book price, which when combined all together equals one record. And you can see down below in the navigation record bar that if you want to go from the first record to the second record, go ahead and click on next, and it goes to the next record, and it says you're on record 2 out of how many? 10. And you can do that. You can go to the next one, you can go to the previous one, or you can go to the first record or go to the last record. Or if you want to go to like record number 6, just go ahead and click in that box there, delete what's there, type in 6, hit enter, and boom, takes me right to it. And then if I want to enter in a new record, I need to go into the last blank row here, just click there, and then I can just start typing in the book number, title, and book price, and then it will save. But what if you're like in record, what's that one, number 6 out of 1,000? I don't want to be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to get to the last blank line here to enter in a new record. Well, that'll be annoying. Instead, just come down here and click on that last button, new blank record. Click on it, takes you right to it, and then just start typing. And then if you want to search for a record, you can come down below in the search box, click in it, and then type in, let's say, cartoon. Oh, there we go. Found it. First one, cartoons out of, well, that's the only one. Cool. So that's the tables, more specifically the book table. Next are queries, and queries are based upon the data found in the books table. And why would you want to query? Well, the basic things that it can do is that you can say, instead of seeing all the fields in the books table, let's say you had maybe a dozen fields here or 20, but you just want to focus on maybe the book title and book price. You don't need to pull up everything else that would come up with that table and then sort through it and scroll over here to scroll back. Again, if you had a dozen fields or columns here, each column represented of a field here that you want to scroll through, well, go ahead and create a query, and that's one way to use a query. But more specifically, it's to be able to set in criteria to filter through all this information here from the table. Like maybe if you just want to see only those book numbers that begin with CA and that a book price is greater than $12, well, you can set that up in queries too. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We've got the books query, and that should be an indicator that it's based upon the books table, but how do you find out? Well, let's double click to open it up, and let's see if we can do some deductive reasoning. Book number and title, that comes from, hey, book number and title in the books table. Let's go back to the query here. And like all Access objects, it's got a design view, which you can come up here on the Home tab again and click on the Design button, and it takes you right to it. And hey, there's the table right there with all the fields from it. And then what we want to see in the query, we just go ahead and pull it down into the grid below, and that's what's going to pull in. Not everything. We get to pick and choose. Oh yeah. And then down below, you've got the criteria row that you can go ahead and type in. Well, I just want to see the book number that begins with CA, and maybe all the titles that begin with the letter A. In any case, we'll go over that in greater detail in a later training video. So let's keep it simple and go back to the datasheet view, come up here from the Design tab in the Results group and click on the Datasheet button. So now that you're familiar with flipping between views by clicking on the Design view, Datasheet view, Design view, you can also right-click on the tabs and also go to Design or to Datasheet. Well, there's SQL, but we're not going to be covering that. I want to keep it to the basics here. So there's for the query. And what you do in here as far as updating any information or adding new records, because it's based upon the books table, it'll update that as well. So if I add a record, it'll add it to the books table. If I edit the record and I change the number here from 412 to 413, it'll go into the books table and update the 412 to 413 as well. So you want to be careful what you do here. It's not just for being able to sort between data, but it also helps that once you break it down into those things that you just want to see from the books table, that you can quickly make edits there and not have to, well, go back to the books table and scroll through everything to make an edit over here or an edit over here. If you have a dozen fields or more, or well, even 6 fields is quite a bit for me. In any case, there we go. And then we have forms. Now we've got a form that is based upon books. So let's double click to open it up in its front end view. And a form is a way to view your data from the table because it's based upon, again, the table, the data in the books table. And the form allows you to control how you want to view it as opposed to a query or just the books, because those are in grids or spreadsheets. This way you can go ahead and say, I don't want it from left to right. I want the book number here. And you can actually say, well, I want the title over here, maybe the book price down here. In any case, you can go ahead and control how the fields are being viewed and what's going to be viewed first. And right here, it's going to be the book number followed by the title and then the book price. And then below that, we have the companies that ordered this book. And right now, I just have one company, the customer number here, which is CS-2. I could fix that and also include the customer name if I wanted to. But in order for me to have this subform here that ties it to the books, well, you have to create a relationship, as we talked about, because a relationship between somebody who bought the book is going to be, well, there's the books, and you got the customers. And we'll talk about how we can connect those and relate them. So when somebody buys a book, like if they called up right now and said, hey, I want to go ahead and buy your book here, Drawing Cartoons. Well, I can come down here into the new record and type in the customer's number or their name if I had their name and I wasn't going by their number. But you can go ahead and design that however you want. And it will make more sense probably as we continue on, because remember, Access is a process when it comes to learning. I wouldn't watch just the first couple of training videos or skip them because they're all layered one on top of another. And you learn a lot, and hopefully you don't skip. But in any case, you go ahead and type in the customer's name, number, and all the information there, save it, and now we have 2 customers that have purchased this book. Cool. And again, how do you know it's based upon the books table? Well, deductive reasoning would show you that, but if you really need solid evidence, then go ahead and let's come up here and right-click on the tab for our form and go to the design view. And that's what the design looks like. And it's a grid here that you can go ahead and use these little dots here to align them just so in your form. And once you go to the design view, I mean, you can select and move these fields around, but I digress. We'll cover that in a later training video. But let me come up here because we're in the design view on the contextual related design tab and go to the tools group and open up the property sheet. Now on the property sheet, well, I've got the properties selected for what I have selected here, but I need the properties for the entire form. So I'll come up here and click in that square right there. So it says, okay, what are the properties for the entire form? Well, the properties that I want to find out is where is the record source? Where's the data coming from? And you can see over here, it's the books. And we've got the prefix TBL. Now, why would you want to go ahead and put prefixes in front of your tables, queries, forms, and reports? Well, when it comes to the back-end view here, this is one reason, is because when you click on the drop-down arrow and you want to base this form upon a table, like the books table, and not the books query, you see how if I didn't have the prefix QRY or TBL, I'd have 2 books? Well, that ain't going to work, because then I'd have to go, I wonder which is which. So when it comes to naming your tables, queries, forms, and reports, it's a good idea to have your naming convention here with the 3-letter prefix. I don't do it because I don't name them the same. Like when I create a query, I'll type in something that I'll remember as a query, but it's up to you. But by default, it's what they recommend, so you don't get confused. As you can see over here, if they have the same names, which one's the table and which one's the books that you want to base this form upon. So let's go ahead and close out of here and go back to the form view, which you can right-click, go to form view, and there you go. And you can go ahead and view the current record that you're on, which down below, there you go, you got your record navigation bars. So there's 1, 2, 3, and of course you can do everything that I just went over in the tables, and also you can do the same thing in the queries. Mess with the record navigation bar down below, takes us right to record 6. You can go ahead and click on new blank record for the books here, and go ahead and type in a new book number, book title, and book price. So there's the forms. Last but not least is we got our reports. So let's go ahead and double click and open that up. Opens up in the, what view is this? If you're not sure what view you're in, you can do, well, a couple of things. You can come up here on the Home tab to the Views group, of course, and then go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow, and whatever's highlighted, that's the view that you're in. And, well, let me hover off of it. You can see the report view icon is highlighted, so we're in the report view, but if I want to print it off or get the print preview, so I can see what it looks like before I click on the print button, before it comes out of the printer, then go ahead and click on that. Now we're in print preview, that you can go ahead and click on it to zoom out, to get a basic overview of the layout, and click on it to zoom in. In any case, you can do that, or you can right click here and change views, or just right click anywhere in the middle of the print preview, and we can go to report view, which is the default view. And then, of course, how was it designed? Well, right-click anywhere, go to the design view, and there you go, just like the forms design view. You got your little dots here, so you can go ahead and line your fields just so. And we'll go over that in greater detail in a later training video. And then if you want to verify that the source of the data is coming from the books table, the record source, again, you want to bring up the property sheet for your design view here, as we did for the form design for books. And you can come up here on the Design tab to the Tools group, click on Property Sheet, and it brings it up. And just make sure that you've got that little box selected here, or, well, you click off in a blank area so it selects the entire report and not just an item or a field, a text box of the report, because right here we've got label 6, and, well, that's not going to tell us where the data is being pulled from. So we want to be able to select the entire report. You can click off in a blank area, and you can see when I do that, that little box there gets filled in with the smaller black box. And so you can see over here it's the report, or you can click on the drop-down arrow and find report, and it's still selected. Or you can click down below in the off the grid here in a blank area, and it's still for report. In any case, come over here, and you got a bunch of different tabs, one for formatting your design, for the data, events, others, or if you're not sure where to look, you can click on all, because that has all, and you can see the record source is the TBL books. And you can click on that drop-down arrow and change it if you'd like. And it's a good idea for this database that we do have the 3-letter prefix for our tables and our queries, so I can identify which one, and in any case, this one, let me click off, is based upon the books table. And then when we're done, let's go ahead and we can close out, or right click and close all, or just close the one that we're on, but let's close all. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.